Deep within the permafrost of interior Alaska, hidden inside a museum drawer in Copenhagen, and buried under 180 feet of ocean water in the Bering Sea, lies the physical evidence of a story that every history textbook got completely wrong. For over half a century, mainstream archaeology taught a simple, linear model. A single group of Ice Age hunters walked across a dry land bridge from Siberia into Alaska, waited for an ice-free corridor to open through Canada, and moved south roughly 13,000 years ago to become the sole ancestors of all Native American populations. But over the past decade, a convergence of high-resolution ancient DNA sequencing, 3D laser sediment mapping, and particle-level radiocarbon testing has detonated that timeline. The data revealed that North and South America were settled not by a single wave, but by multiple, genetically distinct populations' ghost lineages that lived, hunted, and buried their dead for thousands of years before vanishing entirely from the living world. The first major crack in the traditional paradigm appeared at a site called Swan Point in interior Alaska. In 1991, archaeologist Charles Holmes first identified the location, but it was not until systematic excavations led by Dr. Ben Potter between 2006 and 2013 reached the deepest cultural layer, known as Component 4, that the true age of human occupation became undeniable. Buried beneath ancient layers of soil were precision-manufactured microblades, tiny, razor-sharp stone tools struck from carefully prepared cores alongside the charred bones of wapiti, bison, and mammoth. Radiocarbon testing on the deepest hearths returned dates of approximately 14,000 years before present. This placed skilled human hunters in interior Alaska at the very end of the Pleistocene, predating the long-held Clovis model by at least 1,000 years. These were not desperate travelers sprinting through a frozen wasteland. They were operating a permanent, seasonal residential camp in one of the harshest environments on Earth. If humans were already deeply established in interior Alaska 14,000 years ago, who were they? The answer came from a second excavation led by Potter's team in June 2013 at Upward Sun River in the Tanana River Valley. Beneath a hearth pit lined with burned earth, archaeologists uncovered an undisturbed burial pit coated in red ochre, a rich iron pigment used in ancient funeral rituals worldwide. Inside lay the remains of 2 infants, buried alongside antler dart points and stone knives. The preservation of 1 infant, designated USR1, a female child, who died at roughly 6 to 12 weeks old, approximately 11,500 years ago, was so exceptional that ancient DNA laboratories could attempt full genomic sequencing. The bone samples were dispatched to a team led by Dr. Eske Villerslev at the University of Copenhagen, a pioneer in retrieving ancient DNA from frozen permafrost specimens. When Villerslev's team published the full genome of USR1 in Nature in January 2018, the genetic data left population geneticists stunned. Her DNA did not match any single living population, nor did it fit neatly into the established ancestral lineages of modern Native Americans. Instead, USR1 belonged to a completely unknown human population that had diverged from the main Native American ancestral branch approximately 20,000 years ago, long before any migration south of the ice sheets began. This population remained completely isolated in Alaska for thousands of years, while parallel branches moved south. They were named the Ancient Beringians, a sister lineage that built fires, crafted advanced microblades, buried their children with sacred ochre, and then vanished from the genetic record without leaving any full living descendants today. While ancient DNA labs in Copenhagen were processing the Alaska infant genome, a discovery in the desert basin of White Sands, New Mexico, pushed the human timeline back even further. In 2021, a research team led by Dr. Matthew Bennett uncovered dozens of fossilized human footprints pressed into the muddy shoreline of ancient Lake Otero, now a dry salt flat. The tracks captured intimate moments of Ice Age life, adults walking together, children playing, and one remarkable sequence showing an adult carrying a child across soft mud. Initial radiocarbon dating of aquatic grass seeds embedded directly within the footprint layers returned dates between 21,000 and 23,000 years before present. The scientific community erupted in intense debate. Critics immediately challenged the results, arguing that aquatic plants can absorb ancient dissolved carbon from groundwater, a well-known phenomenon called the reservoir effect, making dates read artificially old. In response, Bennett's team returned to the site in 2023, deploying 3 entirely independent dating methodologies to test the layers. They conducted optically stimulated luminescence on surrounding sand grains, radiocarbon dating on terrestrial conifer pollen, and uranium-thorium dating on carbonate minerals. All 3 independent methods converged on the exact same time frame, 21,000 to 23,000 years ago. This confirmed that humans were actively living in the interior of North America at the absolute peak of the last glacial maximum, thousands of miles south of the massive Laurentide ice sheet, at a time when traditional models claimed the continent was completely unpeopled. This creates a massive logistical puzzle for modern archaeology. If people were walking along the shores of Lake Otero 23,000 years ago, where did they come from? And where did their home country go? The answer lies beneath 180 feet of ocean water in the Bering Sea. During the peak of the last glacial maximum, so much of the planet's water was locked up in continental ice sheets that sea levels dropped by nearly 400 feet. What emerged was not a narrow ice bridge, but a massive, fully functioning continent known as Beringia, a landmass stretching 1,000 miles from north to south, covering 1.6 million square kilometers, nearly the size of Australia. Analyzing ancient beetle fossils extracted from seafloor sediment cores reveals that central Beringia was not a barren glacier, but a lush mammoth steppe ecosystem supporting immense herds of megafauna. Geneticists estimate that the founding populations of the Americas inhabited this lost continent for between 8,000 and 15,000 years, a period known as the Beringian standstill. Entire generations were born, lived, and died on a continent that no longer exists above water. When the ice sheets melted around 19,000 years ago, sea levels rose rapidly, completely submerging Beringia by 11,000 years ago. Every coastal campsite, every hearth, and every burial ground of this ancient refuge was sealed under meters of ocean sediment, leaving the primary heartland of early American prehistory virtually unreachable to modern excavation. As if a submerged continent and an isolated Alaskan lineage were not enough to break the old textbook models, geneticists examining living populations in South America encountered another statistical anomaly. In 2015, a team led by Dr. David Reich of Harvard Medical School ran comparative genomic scans on indigenous Amazonian groups, including the Suru and Caritiana peoples of Brazil. The algorithms flagged a distinct, unmistakable genetic signal that had no Siberian or East Asian signature. Instead, this genetic footprint matched Australasian populations, specifically the indigenous peoples of Australia, New Guinea, and the Andaman Islands. Dubbed Population Y after Ibiquera, the Tupi word for ancestor, this genomic signal proves that a distinct population carrying Australasian-related ancestry contributed to the founding gene pool of South America tens of thousands of years ago. Subsequent testing of ancient Brazilian skeletons dating back over 10,000 years confirmed that this was not a recent historical artifact, but a deep, ancient founding signal embedded in the earliest layers of South American human history. When these piece-by-piece scientific revelations are integrated into a single model, the old narrative of a single, uniform migration vanishes. In its place stands a complex, multi-layered human story involving multiple ghost populations, the ancient Beringians who stayed in the frozen north, the White Sands travelers who walked through New Mexico at the height of the Ice Age, the lost inhabitants of the submerged Beringian continent, and the elusive Population Y, whose genetic code lingers in the Amazon. Through the combined lens of high-throughput DNA sequencing, 3D sediment profiling, and non-invasive forensic mapping, modern science is finally illuminating the true complexity of human history buried beneath ancient soil and deep ocean water.